Welcome back to Broadcast Beat at the 2017 Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers Conference and Exhibition. So we're going to continue our conversation about some of these new technologies we're seeing on the SMPTE floor. I have with me Adrian Herrera, who is Vice President of Marketing for a company named Caringo. Now, my understanding is that Caringo offers something called hybrid cloud object storage.
That is correct, that is correct.
All right, well, Adrian, why don't you start off by telling me what that actually means? I kind of know what hybrid cloud is, kind of know what object storage is. Put it all together for me.
Sure, I think what most people don't realize is when you talk cloud storage, it's always object storage in the back. Object storage has been around for quite some time. People use it on a daily basis. If you use Gmail or Facebook or any sort of web scale service, object storage is enabling all of the media behind it, whether it's videos or photos. When we say hybrid, typically we mean being able to use a cloud service to store your content, your information. So object storage, the software we provide, is an on-prem solution. So anytime you need massively scalable storage for any sort of unstructured information, documents, photos, images, and videos, of course, you would install our software on any x86 server hardware and create this massively scalable pool of storage. Where hybrid comes in is you can now tier a subset of that information to the cloud. In our case, it's Microsoft Azure. It will be Amazon next year, but we chose to move forward with Azure first. But you can tier a subset of information to the cloud for any number of purposes, either to leverage the cloud services that they offer, machine learning, AI, those kind of services, or for a cold copy. If you need to, replace your vault and you need to get your video, 100 miles from the production facility overnight, that's a really good use case for the cloud. You can just use one of their data centers somewhere and you spin it up and overnight you can start transferring content to it. So that's what we mean by hybrid, the ability to keep most of your data on-prem, but also tier a subset of it into the cloud.
It seems like it would be a very desirable for people, especially who are not ready to move entirely into the cloud, that this hybrid solution will kind of offer them the best of both worlds.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a security concern. First, there's a risk there, so if you do want to test it out, this is a great way to test out the cloud. There are security concerns, so I think we need to look no further than Equifax and some other things to understand that, hey, there's still some issues, and there's always, organizations being hacked and content being stolen in the media industry. And then there's also just an overall to leverage the advancements in some of the services that the cloud providers have. The infrastructure is really unimaginable, the scale of infrastructure that Google and Amazon and Microsoft have. And the advancements that they're making on some of the technologies like artificial learning and machine learning, or artificial intelligence, I should say, they're moving at such a fast pace. With this type of solution, you're able to move a subset of your information, not all of it, up to the cloud. Because at the end of the day, it's also a speed of light issue. How do you move hundreds of terabytes, petabytes of information quickly?
Well, you immediately caught my interest when you said Microsoft Azure, and talked about a little bit about deep learning and artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
Tell me how that, can you suss that out a bit for me? What does that actually look like? What are people doing?
Sure, so from our perspective, the first thing is enablement, being able to move media in a way that is usable by these services. And that's really what we focus on, is this distribution of data in a very easy way. Even though we have storage in our name, we do focus on distribution of data. And once you have it in a way where when we tier that information, we tier it in a native Azure blob format. And once it's in native Azure blob format, it means it could be used by the artificial learning, artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. And what we see most often are image recognition, metadata extraction. We're seeing that. There's a lot of organizations going through and analyzing video and extracting either faces or certain objects or certain scenes. And it's getting quite advanced, and you need a lot of processing horsepower to do those types of processes.
And that's when you need to be in the cloud, obviously.
Absolutely.
So can you spell out a little bit more about what Caringo does offer?
Sure, so we offer software. So our main product is software. And again, it's the object storage software that installs on any generic servers, x86 servers, but we also offer a number of different interfaces. So we do support the Amazon S3 API for an ingest perspective, and that's how we enable a lot of our partners. I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit. But we also have legacy file system interfaces. So if you have a bunch of videos or photos just sitting there in, let's say, a Windows filer, or if you have an application that's creating video, but it supports an NFS protocol, historically, those protocols did not integrate or interoperate with object storage very well, because object storage is all web-based, RESTful-based. So we have a number of products that make that transition seamless, where we support those legacy protocols. We can offload those existing NASs or those existing data sets and move them to this more current method of storage, object storage, and you can now leverage metering, and we call it multi-tenancy, but the ability to set up accounts, set capacity limits, access limits, and again, you get access to all of those, the ecosystem, the cloud ecosystem through the Amazon S3 API. And that's a big movement that we see right now on the production side of the world.
Explain a little bit, how does that actually work? What is the workflow for that?
So the workflow, so a lot of these platforms now, we just announced with Reach Engine, they're supporting the Amazon S3 API. So with that, they get support for a number of different storage vendors out there that support the S3 API. So it's great for production houses and content producers, because now they're just not relegated to one type of storage. They can go out and really shop for the storage platforms that offer the most value to them, and be comfortable in the fact that they'll be supported because of the adoption of certain, it's not a standard, but it's a de facto standard like the S3 API.
So it does seem that we're in an era in which people are learning, are evolving slowly into some new technologies. And it seems like that is kind of the sweet spot for Caringo, helping people move into some of these new technologies. Sure. Are there aspects that you offer that is different from other solutions out there? How do you distinguish yourself in the market?
So we do, our focus is making sure that the media is usable, regardless of the platform it's being sent to. So that's why we do native Azure conversion when we send it to Microsoft Azure. We also do the same thing with the NFS protocol. If something comes in as NFS, you can access it via S3, our own protocol, or even now Azure format. So we really focus on usability. And one of the things that we also do is we store metadata with the object itself. We're not storing it in another database. I know it's a little techie, but I know SMPTE has a lot of
we're techie here.
Yeah. And so when you don't have that additional database, that means you have one less thing to protect. You don't need to go out and get a DBA, and you can scale not only the object store, but also the metadata associated with it, just like you do that data, that content, that media, and you protect it the same way. So, the future of media is really going to be in, how quickly can you access metadata? Where does that metadata sit? How can you derive and use the associations between the media you create?
Well, it seems like it would be a very bad idea to separate the metadata from the object that it describes in general. Don't you always want them together? You
do, and but it happens a lot in the media space. A lot of asset management solutions, they store their metadata in their own database just because they have to. They're the software layer. They don't control the entire stack all the way down to storage. But you're seeing a trend where a lot of the cutting edge companies in metadata, not necessarily in media, but in other enterprise use cases, they're going out and they're acquiring storage companies because they understand now that they need to control the entire stack, because that's where it makes the most sense. Because if you have those metadata databases, they're very difficult to protect, they're very difficult to move, and if one of them corrupts or you get a corrupted metadata database, a lot of your media can go along with it.
Well, you did mention usability, and of course, as soon as I heard that, I thought, uh-oh, this sounds like it could be a real tragic situation if you didn't have usability. What happens when that goes wrong?
Well, when it goes wrong, you can't access your content. So, a lot of times a metadata database is holding the association of where that content is stored in the storage cluster.
I see.
along with the descriptive information. So you can imagine if something happens with that and you can't recover it, then how do you know what you stored? It is, object storage is a little bit different. For a lot of solutions, there isn't a file system or there isn't this, easy directory way to view your content. So, you lose that addressing scheme, but when you lose that addressing scheme, what you get is scale, the ability to easily scale and the ability to easily protect. So from the database perspective, if you do have that database managing everything for you and you lose it or it gets corrupted, you can lose your entire content store.
It sounds a little bit like Caringo kind of saw this opportunity possibly before others did. How pioneering of a company is Caringo? When did you actually start offering these services and products?
Sure. We started at the same time as Amazon S3.
Wow.
So back then it wasn't called cloud storage, it was called internet storage. And the first customers that we really acquired were in the medical space. Because in the medical space, they were struggling with images and these scaling image archives. They were also struggling with proprietary silos of video. You have your GE scanner, you have your Panasonic scanner. Once you scan those images, there really wasn't interoperability between systems. So there's a lot of similar trends in what happened in the medical space with VNAs and what's going on now in the media space with a lot of these asset management solutions.
So that's very interesting. You started in medical. Were there other industries you served aside from medical and media and entertainment?
Yeah, medical, federal, and we've always been on the content delivery side of media. So now we're really pushing into the production side. So we've had customers like NEP for quite some time. NEP, they're the broadcast service provider.
Right.
And they're the ones with the trucks at the Oscars and Olympics. Right. And they use our technology, our software, to enable their content delivery network. So we are their kind of origin storage layer. So we enable OTT business for them, or their OTT service for them. And they also use us as the active archive. So everything in their world needs to remain accessible. They really can't put it on tape because they have a quality of service that they need to deliver. And they use our software to solve that need.
So I'm curious, starting with medical and federal and these other industries you've worked in, what did you learn from those experiences that you brought to the media and entertainment market?
Sure. At the end of the day, it's all has to do with very large files, very large unstructured data sets that need to be accessed. A lot of times in the medical space, it's a matter of life or death. So we did, we learned a lot in the past 12 years working with medical images and neutral archives, VNAs, vendor neutral archives. And we're bringing all of that learning to the production side. We've always been an M&E also since our inception, but more on the web delivery side. So we also bring that solid content delivery knowledge with us.
So tell me, I know that you've had some new partnerships.
Absolutely.
Tell us about your partnerships.
Yeah, so just last week we announced a partnership with Reach Engine, Levels Beyond. So we're now accessible through their S3 support. We've always had great partners like File Catalyst and Marquee Broadcast. So Marquee, depending on just about any sort of storage media or any sort of production platform or editing platform, they can move media between those systems. But yeah, the announcement was with Reach Engine, and we're just in the final stages of certification with Cat TV. So we're supporting a number of different asset management solutions, video editing platforms. A lot of the times we work just straight out of the box because of our S3 integration. So again, it just gives our customers that we're working with in the M&E space security to know that, hey, we're working with the solutions and the software applications that you use, but you can also use us independently as this storage layer for everything that's not high performance.
It sounds like you have a bit of a challenge in that you're kind of the layer behind the consumer or the business facing level, so people use you and they don't even know they're using you.
Absolutely. The IT guys know they're using us.
Right.
They're the ones who get the most benefit. A lot of times the producers, when they're producing content, they can write directly to the storage layer that others access. But you're right, a lot of times they don't know it's Caringo enabling things. In fact, I believe we have most of the dating sites are using us
Really?
to deliver their photos. So if you've ever used an online dating site, I can't name names, chances are you've used Caringo in the back. But we're really making an effort to support the entire ecosystem, just really make it easy for people to extract the maximum value from our storage.
And it sounds like also you said that you're also out of the box. So is that a more visible, would that be a more visible implementation of your tool sets?
Yeah, it's always, we are infrastructure at our core. We do need to work with an application, whether that's an application that's developed in-house or some other application like Reach Engine or
Right.
some other kind of interface. But if anyone does want to try it, they can come out and come to our site and download a developer edition, so they can see it with their own eyes, see the value. You do have to be a techie or a developer or some sort of product person. It is infrastructure, but we do have a number of tools so that if you do want to just kind of test it out, have a solution, kind of a turnkey solution, we have that.
And I understand you have some new products coming out, some new announcements to make?
We do. So because of demand that we see in the M&E space, we're working on a very major distribution deal. We won't announce it until 2018, but we're very excited about that. We're also excited about some of the other interfaces. I mentioned the Amazon support and some of the other interfaces that we're coming out with next year. And again, we're going to do that in a way that the data, the media is usable by the different services or platforms or applications that we're sending that media to.
So you can't give us any hints,
But
it's going to be exciting. Huh?
It's exciting for us. Exciting from an engineering perspective, it should be exciting. So, if anyone out there is struggling with the expectations of providing free storage, which we hear a lot in the production space, it's, so I create these projects and now I'm expected to store it for free because they can go to Amazon or wherever and pay 10 cents and get everything stored. And the other main issue that we hear from the production side is, they also expect me to find it. A lot of times when I do a project, I put it on tape, put it in the archive, and that's it. And now content producers, film studios, they're asking for those assets, and when they're asked for them, they want them that day.
Oh, absolutely.
That day, that hour, that minute, if they can.
Right.
And these are the things that we've done for many different industries. These are the problems that we can help solve.
All right, so SMPTE must be an absolutely ideal show for you. You've got a whole hall full of engineers.
It is, absolutely.
What are you doing at SMPTE?
Well, we just had people walking the floor. We will be at the Palm Springs event. We're looking forward to that. But we just have people walking the floor. Lots of meetings, lots of partners here. So just having those types of conversations.
Excellent. So you'll be at the next SMPTE event, the HPA Tech Retreat, I take it then.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're SMPTE members. So
of course.
we will be there.
So what trends are you, since it sounds like you're in touch with a whole slew of people from end providers to all the behind the scenes technologies, what are the trends that you're seeing? Where is it? You probably have a better view of that because you're so far back in the process.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of trends. You can't deny the trend of the cloud. But with the security concerns of the media space, again, I think testing it out with tiering solutions is a good middle ground. You're able to send a subset of your information out there. So, but you can't deny the value of the cloud, and where we see the value of the cloud is in the processing side, really, and the intelligence side, and transcoding side, that kind of service, because those are very difficult processes to scale overnight. If you have a huge transcoding job, then how do you acquire those servers, rack and stack them, put the right codecs on those machines, write up the processes, and then go ahead and transcode your project? You can't overnight.
Right, and then you might want to scale back to zero.
Exactly.
Right.
It's very elastic. So for those elastic use cases, the cloud is great. Also for cold archive, again, when you need to get your data or your videos or your content a certain number of miles from where you are in a different hazard zone, the cloud's great for that. You just go ahead and send your content, and hopefully you'll never have to access it. It's cold, and it's there, it's secure, and it's just an insurance policy. It's your disaster recovery policy. So that's a trend that we see. Again, metadata, and I think there are some standards that we're looking at. AXF being one of them. But it may be a little too early for metadata standardization in certain ways. Standardization always stifles innovation. So, with any sort of standard, we just hope that it is portable, it's easy to support for both the applications and the storage vendors.
Well, I appreciate what you say about innovations, being stifled by standardization, but adoption is stifled when you don't have standardization.
Absolutely.
So there's a tipping point there somewhere, right?
There is. There's a chicken and an egg thing, and the motion picture industry is full of the standards battles, and what's better, and technically, and quality doesn't always win.
Right.
I think there's Betamax and a lot of other formats that you could point to, but we're looking at that closely. Just because we handle metadata in a very unique way, we make it easy to manage, easy to search, and just the innovation that we're seeing now is really going to be metadata driven.
So you see that the standard is a little bit off in the future still for metadata?
I do, but everything's starting to kind of come into focus. We were talking earlier, and my background's actually in digital audio for the half of my career, and there was an interesting trend. First of all, convenience is king now. So what happened on the audio side, digital audio side, was the convenience of MP3, the convenience of being able to take everything in your pocket was too great, and that's when you got a lot of piracy, and it took the industry a while to recoup, but once they did, what really brought things to the forefront was the value they added, the convenience of being able to provide a lot of audio services, and it's all metadata driven. It's all metadata driven, not only the metadata of the actual audio files itself, but what you're listening to, when you're listening to it. And these audio services create a very complex method to deliver the right content to you at the right time. And I'm seeing a lot of similar trends here in the media space. Now that files are smaller, bandwidth is faster, and you have a HD monitor in your pocket, convenience is really going to be key. So you need to look to those technologies that enable that convenience.
So interesting. Do you feel that eventually we're going to move from this hybrid, on-premises cloud scenario to an all-in-the-cloud scenario? Is that in the future?
I don't think so. And again, there'll always be a need to keep content on-premise. And it's also a speed of light issue. What most people don't understand is, even with the fastest connections, you can only send a few terabytes of data in a consistent way, at least today. And the sizes of 4K, and the editing needs and concerns. And that's why you'll always have a need to keep a very large subset of your content, your media, on premise. But that doesn't mean that you won't need different tiers of storage to support it. Again, from the Caringo perspective, we're not saying we replace your entire storage infrastructure. We're just going after the bulk data, really your active archive information, everything out of the high performance layer. So, and we feel that those data sets are so large and those files are so large that you're going to need to keep most of that on-prem within your data center.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people agree with you, and I look forward to seeing how your product evolves and your partnerships in the industry. I guess we'll get our next checkup at SMPTE's HPA Tech Retreat in February.
Absolutely.
Very lovely talking with you, Adrian.
Likewise.
Take care.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.